Our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV. And if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jakob from Sweden.
Shows What You Know, your television podcast. We love TV. We love TV. I am Jim from Las Vegas.
And I'm Jakob from Sweden. And we do indeed love TV. We won't shut up about it. This week we're going to not shut up about new Disney news, right? Disney's doing a bunch of bullshit. I was saying before we started recording, is it like we have a television podcast. We do love TV. But we spend so much time shitting on things. But hopefully you're here for it, because we're here for it. We're never stop shitting on things. Hell yeah.
I mean, I dare say that I have some positive things to say about some stuff we're going to be talking about. Because, we will get into some of the news coming out of D23. We will take a gander at the Skeleton Crew trailer, which I've been talking about this show for a little bit. I've been looking forward to it. Even as a kind of a bittered and battled Star Wars fan that turns his back on the franchise. Even I have a little glow in my eyes. I look forward to it. And we'll also be talking a little bit about what we've been watching lately. But before we get into all of that, Jakob, opening the show with a brand new game /bit/segment. What do you got for us, Jakob?
That's right. Well, we got a brand new segment for you, or should I say a brand old segment, because we're going back into television history. There's not a game aspect to this. It's basically me just explaining something to you because I think it's important. You know, as I said, do a lot of complaining on here. We watch some Marvel bullshit or whatever, and we're like, this sucks. Well, let me tell you about something that doesn't suck, Jim. A little piece of television history. And by the way, the segment doesn't have a name, but I think HISTORTVEE, maybe, like television history, or maybe History Reel, a little play on our podcast, Real History, that you can find at showswhatyouknow.com. We're workshopping this.
Have you ever thought about doing Real History before?
Oh, well, it's not history, it's herstory.
Yeah.
Except in this case, it's history, because we're going back to the 90s when the patriarchy was in full swing, as it is today.
Good old days.
You love reality television, Jim.
I am known to be a fan. What's weird though is I'm more of a recently awakened reality TV guy. I wasn't that big of a I mean, I would always take a gander here and there. And even now, I'm still like pale in comparison to other people. But I guess much like a lot of other people, once the pandemic hit, I started binging things. And one of the things that was easy and had like a ton to watch was something like The Challenge and Survivor. So that's what really kind of scratched that itch and got me back into the game.
Well, this is actually a perfect history lesson for you then, because I can bring you back to the mecca of reality television, the sort of birthplace, or at least the creative womb of so many interesting, fun, creative shows, namely Sweden 1997. Specifically late August. I've previously told you about Expedition Robinson, right? The Swedish reality TV show that was later remade in the US as Survivor 3 years later.
Now, was it, I mean, I know we talked about this before. Was it officially thought of as a remake, or did they just kind of swipe an idea?
It is an official, like, it's using the same format. Now, the format was invented by a British guy, to my understanding, who tried to sell it around, and Sweden was the only people who were like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. And so the first version of Survivor, or Expedition Robinson, as we called it, was the Swedish version, which was then remade, though I think technically, you know, they're making the concept, right? So the concept is owned by some fella, but it was Strix Television was the production company. So yeah,
well,
that's the OG version.
The reason why I ask, I'm not sure if you know this or not, because what you're about to get into was Mark Burnett involved. Because Mark Burnett is like the big British producer guy that I know of as like the godfather of Survivor, and when what some people think reality TV. Although, to be fair, if we want to really get there, we go back to the early 90s with MTV's The Real World. That is like the granddaddy of them all for reality TV for me.
That's fair. But you know what? Fuck all that I just told you about,
All
because
right.
none of that
Yeah.
matters. All I'm
Okay.
doing here is telling you we're setting the
You're just
scene,
setting the
because
scene. Okay.
Expedition Robinson, it came out in September 1997. Fuck that. We're going all the way back to August 1997, 2 weeks
Okay.
earlier, when a different reality/game show premiered, produced by the same company. Now, the name of this show that I'm telling you about today is På rymmen, which is Swedish for basically on the lam or on the run. So
Okay.
that was the basic concept. Each week, 2 pairs of contestants were on the run, trying to escape 2 trackers that are trying to track them down. So this is a game that takes place 24/7 all week. So it would start on a Friday night with contestants being given a very brief head start. They run off into Sweden, and then the game just happens after that. The trackers are supposed to find the contestants and capture them on camera without being seen themselves. And to keep things interesting, contestants had to complete different daily challenges each week. So they'd win money for each day that they managed to complete that challenge and avoided being filmed by their trackers.
So this is like a game of like tag or hide and go seek or something, basically, right?
Exactly. And honestly, this concept is something that could be a very popular YouTube show now, except the thing
Totally.
that made it unique was there's no fucking camera phones. People barely had dial-up internet at home at this stage, right? It was all phone-based, and in fact, phone booths played a large part in the game, as I'll get to in a second. But the main thing is, this game took place in public, and it was a very popular show very quickly, which meant that the public got involved. So there were some rules, like they were only allowed to travel via public transport, so they couldn't just get in a car and drive off somewhere. They have to be
Yeah.
on buses and trains. They could get in taxis, but they were only allowed to spend up to a certain amount on transport each day. So this is kind of keeping them in the public space where they might be caught and filmed, right? Popular contestants, though, found that they were often able to travel for free because so many people were watching the show and helping them along. But then, on the other hand, the trackers had a hotline that you could call. So they would literally get, like, tips from the general public on where they'd been seen. But, of course, people could also call in and lie about where they've seen. And the public also was involved in these challenges, which would always be something along the lines of, sing an ABBA song with the local choir every day. And you have to do it in a different town every day. Learn a new dance from a qualified dancing instructor and then make a public performance or perform a haircut in a barber shop. And you could only stay in one area, one municipality, for up to 24 hours. And you couldn't cross your own path of travel through the country. So it was really like a
Ooh.
chase.
So yeah, this gets pretty complicated, but and it totally does seem like it could either be a series or YouTube series today, or like it's like the basis of a horror movie, like The Most Dangerous Game, like the man hunts man, like, because it would be, it wouldn't be a fun version of it. It would be like, if you get caught, you're dead. And will people snitch on you, or will they help you? Like that whole, like, do you believe in the human spirit or no?
Yes, exactly. And I think in general, it kind of depended on how popular the contestants were, right? Because you're right, it's pretty convoluted. It gets even more convoluted, which is why I'm bringing you into it layer by layer here. But basically, you could either be eliminated at the end of the week or advance to the next week. Some of the people who were on the show became very popular, like were completely unknown, like as with most reality shows, but became quite popular over time. So then they get more help from the public. But in order to make sure that they didn't just like end up hundreds of miles away from each other, morning, lunch, and evening, they had to report their location to their trackers, right? So they're always on their tail and they always have to keep moving.
Okay.
Another central thing here that I think is what made it a part of what made it unique is they're not accompanied by a camera crew. They're just kind of given a camera, told to film absolutely everything themselves. And I think that's kind of the genius of the show, because their personalities really come through in a way that we're now extremely familiar with. No one knew what a selfie was at this stage. There were no front-facing camera, except the fucking Game Boy camera. I got a bunch of them over there. But they basically lugged around some serious pieces of equipment. Like, you could probably tell they were out filming stuff. And then they would have to literally, like, mail the tapes to the TV show, who would then edit it in a hurry. So this was a weekly show on Fridays. You'd see the actual fruits of what had happened throughout the week.
No, this is intriguing. It's very like ahead of its time, I would say.
I think so. Now, in some ways, it's extremely of its time as well. So there was a weekly finale. This is where things get intense, Jim, because even if they were caught and filmed throughout the week, they weren't eliminated. That just meant that they couldn't get their like cash for achieving their challenge that week. If they ran into each other, like literally, if they saw each other, there was like a timeout where they were allowed to escape again, right? So it's kind of like you don't make any money, you're kind of failed for the day, but you can keep going. But on Fridays, you could get eliminated via the live broadcast. So the show itself, what you actually sat down to watch, was a live broadcast on Friday nights. This was like primetime television, and it was like 90 minutes, and basically the concept of it was that the contestants, they had to pick a phone booth to hide in. So you'd pick like a town or whatever, and then pick a phone booth and get it set up with cameras so that all you can see in the live studio is like a feed from a phone booth where they're standing talking to the hosts of the show, bantering and whatnot. They're checking in also with the trackers who are searching for them. And then during these 90 minutes of the show, they're looking for them while we check in on like what they've been doing throughout the week. And the trackers are trying to catch them, because if they catch them during these 90 minutes, they're eliminated and they're not going to progress to the next week.
So wait, you said this was a live feed?
Yeah, it's a live show, and like people would again try to fuck with them or try to make like people win or lose, basically. Yeah.
So the trackers could be watching the feed, but then again, I guess it's hard to remember or think. But there was so many phone booths, so it's not kind of like, oh, they're in a phone booth. I know where that is. I know where to find them. Yeah.
You could be strategic, and like they had a whole tracking central in the studio where they'd have like, here's the tracker general guy coming out, and they're looking at a map and showing where all the phone booths in Göteborg or Stockholm or whatever town they're in. So obviously if you pick a smaller town with less phone booths, got greater chance of you being caught. But remember, you can't cross your own path of travel either, so you can't do this like in the same big city 2 Fridays in a row either, because you can't go back where you've been before. So it's kind of like picking a good spot, and then obviously through the feed they've closed off so you can't see anything outside of the phone booth either. So they only have like an hour and a half to find them during this live event. So yeah, it was pretty thrilling, I'm not gonna lie. And meanwhile, like an interesting thing as well is you only really saw what they did through the first half of the week, because like they wouldn't have time to edit or even post the videotapes back, but everything was filmed throughout the week, and that's kind of where we learned what was happening. And I have thought, right, am I just looking at this with rose-tinted glasses? Maybe this was just an obsession among me and my friends, because I have very intense memories of watching this every Friday night. And then I rewatched it. A lot of it earlier this year.
So hold on, before you get to the footage though, what's the ultimate goal though? Like what can you ultimately, like say is there an end point, or do you just go until you get caught?
So there wasn't at the start. There was no limit at the start. You could go week to week, but the money you earn per day doubles every week. You're able to stay there. So if you're there for 4 weeks or whatever, but this is your life, obviously. You're not doing anything else during this time. You're earning a hell of a lot more money. But then I think people did get like burned out, because they're like, we're switched on. We're always on the run, and you have to do these shit challenges as well. So pretty intense. But there wasn't a limit. But then as the show got more popular, they're like, yes, and if you do it 4 weeks, you win a car, and just added all of these extra things over time. So there was reason enough to keep going. And yeah, so I rewatched it, a good bit of it, and I can confirm that this is a good show. This is and it was insanely popular, which I can confirm through watching the show and seeing how many people recognize the people in the show and just give them free passes to ride on buses or whatever in every part of the country. Like, it was the most viewed show at the time. And I want to tell you about 2 contestants in particular who were particularly good, Jalle and Heavy. Now, these are 2 rock and roll kind of guys with long hair and coarse senses of humor. And the thing about them is they're really funny. And they're also very good at this game. So they do things like do a taxi trick where they were so popular, they got a bunch of different taxi guys to just show up for free and then drive off in different directions with decoys of them sitting in them because they knew they'd been made, but they were able to escape that way. Another time at the start of the week when they're starting to escape, like they're supposed to just leg it and disappear, they went and visited the host of the TV show, like who's not a tracker, right? Is just like the host, and just went to his house and knocked on the door like the first thing thing they did and had like dinner, and he was like, oh, what the fuck, come in, hide, and like gave them dinner and stuff. They're just very funny. And the thing that really made them pop off in Sweden as like celebrities is beyond the challenges that they did every week, they drop a diss track on the person tracking them. So this was kind of a rock and roll kind of song, not rap, which nowadays you could produce that sort of thing on a laptop, but these were fully produced tracks. And again, I re-listened to these. I'm like, surely these are not as good as I remember. I'm like, these are actually bangers. So beyond doing all of the challenges, they had to write a song about the person tracking them, find someone with a studio along their escape path and produce it while also completing challenges and evading their trackers. And not only that, they were catchy songs too. And each episode, there'd be like a music video cut together from clips from them. So, and their first two albums that they then dropped, which I own as CDs, probably some of the first CDs I bought, they shot to #1 when they were released. So this is kind of giving you an idea of what a big factor this was. And the trackers themselves, they were often celebrities, but the contestants usually were not, except they became celebrities, as you can tell.
So these guys were really like locked in, like they were kind of the perfect pair to be on a show like this, because they weren't just doing the basic thing; they were throwing in their own personalities and like you mentioned, visiting the host or making songs. I doubt people that came up with this concept even foresaw like the potential for something like that. So they like fully used like every option they had to make it a great show.
They were entertainers driving the narrative even more so than the actual people producing it. Because I said it was a good show, right? But I also rewatched some other clips and I'm like, oh, these are boring contestants. Let me skip to the Yalla and Heavy parts. So not like, they're not all home runs, but they had like, I skipped and watched all of the bits with my favorite guys. And I'm like, oh no, they are like proper entertainers. They're working so hard to put this thing together, and throughout the course, and they actually managed to stay on between seasons, so they were still in it at the end of season 1 and started season 2, and then so their star could kind of keep rising throughout that time. And I gotta say as well, they're from my local neck of the woods, from Dalarna as well, where I'm from, so maybe I have a sort of patriotic connection with them as well. And one of the scant achievements of my own musical career was when my punk rock band opened for Mimikry, their band, when I was like 17 years old. So I'm
that's awesome.
very biased in this, but yeah, they're fucking great. And I think that's basically it. That's the TV history. That's what I wanted to tell you about. This show, it slowly dwindled, right? There were 3 seasons. There's not loads of seasons. It kind of died off because I think literally the phone booths stopped being used. So it came out in 97, went on for like 3 years, and phone booths were becoming less popular. Maybe they kind of limited it as well. They were like, okay, maybe 4 weeks is the maximum that anyone can escape for, because people are like getting burnt out, or like we need to vary things up. But I think that also prevented massive personalities like Yalla and Heavy to emerge from it, because they weren't in the public consciousness for as long. But basically, yeah, it all fell apart after a few years. There was some sort of UK version of the show that I've never watched, kind of trying to do a similar concept. But I swear, I felt when I was watching it as a kid that there was like some sort of magic being caught here. And I'm happy to say maybe part of it's nostalgia, but I rewatched it. I'm like, no, we were right. It was good. And that's some TV history for you.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, maybe they did attempt something like a remake of that or something here in the States, and I just never had heard of it or wasn't familiar enough with it, didn't like break through enough. Because I am surprised. I guess I've heard of similar things, because it really is a great concept. It does even feel like something, even though obviously with, like you mentioned, with phones and stuff like that, it would be tougher today, but also maybe more fun, because it would be like weirdly add more interaction with like an audience if you had like a huge audience. But no, I love this. I love this whole idea.
Great. Yeah, they did try to make like a couple of sequel follow-up type things, one in 2002, one in 2014. But yeah, I think that you could make it now, and I think I've even seen some Swedish like YouTube people doing like a version of it, because the basics of the game is like hide and seek, right? And then whatever you add on top of that is really what's going to determine if it's an interesting production or not. So there's I think it's interesting because this came out at the same time as Expedition Robinson. That's why I mentioned it at the start, right? And Survivor as a concept really caught on internationally, whereas this one, there were a couple of variations and things, but I think the main thing that actually sunk it is it was so expensive to produce. As you can imagine, like at the time, probably not so much now, but they have to do these live broadcasts. They have to follow these people around the country. They have to, like, 24/7, they're filming stuff because the tracker, I believe, has like a camera person with them, right? Like they have a whole production thing. They have a phone line people can call and leave tips, and they have to report things every few hours where they're at, and all these different aspects that just added up and made it an expensive production, coupled with the fact that there were no more phone booths to be had. So I think that's kind of what sank it.
Well, and it also is different because it's like you had mentioned, you'd have to be putting it. It's not like a show like Survivor. You can shoot Survivor. They shoot the whole season, and then like 6 months later they can air it. So they have plenty of time to shoot it, edit it, then promote it, whatever. You don't really want to have to like, and this feels like something you could do that, but it would obviously like take all the wind out of the sails because having people interact with it seems like it would be a big part of it. And I mean, they do similar things like that now with like Big Brother, where like they do edit it like it is kind of weekly, but at least that's a more controlled environment because they're just focusing on the house, and like you could still have viewers watch live feeds, but this would be something that would be like on the go. You need to have an episode edited for the week of stuff that happened. So yeah, it feels like that's probably the biggest hurdle, is people just don't want to have to worry about that type of work.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is an excellent point, because you're obviously like making something all of the time and you do a live broadcast every week. The whole point of reality TV from a, capitalist perspective is that it's cheap to produce, and this was not cheap to produce. So it makes even flying contestants to Bali or whatever no problem in comparison with the ongoing cost of running an operation like this. I guess if it came back now, if there was a version now, it would be all like IRL streamers, like the whole thing would be streamed from both perspectives all of the time. But then there'd be stream sniping, and it's a whole it's just something that's so of its time, like including like the technical limitations and everything, that it just has a special place in my heart. And I always thought I was wrong. I always thought it was just like a shitty thing, and it is, it's from the 90s, but it has all of the cheese that you want from a 90s show that you're rewatching as well. The reason I have to explain this to you is it only exists in Swedish in like really grainy uploads on YouTube. So it's not like I can even tell you to watch this show. There's no subtitles. It wouldn't come across. So, but I think it is an important piece of reality television history, even if it didn't explode out as much as something like Survivor. So there you go. There's a bit of history of television, or HISTORTVEE, or HISTORTVEE. We'll figure out the name later.
Who would have thunk it, but this is an educational show. I was going to ask about clips, but then, I was going to ask if they were subtitled, but it sounds like they're not. So I'll just have to hit the books and start learning Swedish so I can finally experience it for myself.
It's the best reason to learn Swedish, for sure. I can't see many other reasons.
So then, yes, as we mentioned, we'll get into a little bit news here. I mean, there's not a ton of news with with TV right now. Everyone's talking about the Olympics, which I'm not a big Olympics person, but so I don't really know what's going on there. I do know that Tom Cruise jumped off a building for the closing ceremony, which rocks. But D23 happened this past weekend, ladies and gentlemen. That's Disney's big like exhibition announcement panel thing they do. It's not quite a convention. It's just a way to like advertise to you. Like everything's an advertisement, obviously, but this is a way to like, I don't know, monetize advertisements even more.
So for the layperson, why is it 23? I would have assumed D24 for 2024, no?
No, fuck, why is it? I should know this because I'm a Disney person. Hold on.
I'm going to Google D23. Why, though?
It's because it's based off of shit. Because it's the official fan club. I know that.
I fucking got you. I'm always trying to get you. Yeah, because that's like a thing. Club 23, isn't that a thing with Disney?
Well, that's Club 33.
Ah, fuck's sake,
That's-
Jim. There's
that's-
too many numbers. Too many numbers.
Yeah, why is it 23? I should know this too. Destination Disney. Wait, hold on.
1923, the year Walt Disney arrived in California.
Exactly. All right. I'm exposed. I should have known this. I've been to the Walt Disney
Fake.
Museum and all that.
Fake Disney fan.
Well, it is funny because I was watching feed because usually they broadcast it. They didn't broadcast the panel this year, and at one point they were like, it all started with a dream, and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't. They go like, it all started with one thing, a dream. I'm like, no, it didn't. It started with a dream and a suitcase. So let's get that straight for once and for all. But they do it every 2 years, and the main thing is they go through all the...
Jim, sorry to cut you off again, but did they used to do it every 1 year, and now they've gone to every 2 years because they're trying to line up with the TV release schedule? Hey-o.
Oh, get them. Get them. It's usually park stuff like attractions, ride upgrades, stuff like that. But they do check in, of course, with the media side of things, movies and TV. One of the big things that I'm excited about, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is the Skeleton Crew Star Wars show, which a lot of people describe as Stranger Things in Star Wars. Like someone texted me about this, and they're like, "Oh, Stranger Things in Star Wars," and my literal response was, "You shut your whore mouth. It's Goonies in Star
Goonies.
Wars."
Yeah.
It's,
I knew you were going to say that.
I guess that is a thing about getting old. I'm sure if I was like, the Goonies, people are like, Little Rascals, you idiot, like when I was a kid. But anyways.
Yeah, people be like, oh, have you heard of IRL streamers? I'm like, more like på rymmen, you motherfucker. You Swedish motherfucker.
Now, I assume you haven't watched this trailer, correct?
Correct.
All right, let's take a quick peek here.
Tomorrow's test will set the course of your entire future.
Don't you ever want to do anything exciting? Like what? What if we could go anywhere we want in the whole galaxy? A real adventure. No more pretend. I found something buried in the woods. What do you think it is? I think it's a lost Jedi temple. Hello? Be careful where you step. We're lost. Really lost.
Tis dangerous out there in space. Trust no one.
You're a Jedi.
Skeleton Crew, December 3rd? December 3rd, baby. I love it. Let's fucking go.
Nice. What do you like about it?
Well, I mean, it has the music obviously kicks in, but it has the proper vibe that you should like the wonder, like you get the vibe. It's a swashbuckling adventure, full of the wonder of the eyes of a child. Weirdly enough, I saw some people of course, in social media with Star Wars, you're going to see a lot of criticism. But one of the things I saw was like, show for kids. What the fuck? And I was like, I know it's like a running gag of like Star Wars is for children, but like literally, Star Wars is for children. Is this really where we're going now, where we're upset that it's like more about kids? Like someone called it like a kiddie show or something like that, which I thought was bizarre. But I mean, it's a throwback to the old Amblin. I mean, we see more and more of this a little bit. Throwback to the Amblin vibe, like E.T., Obviously the Goonies, 80s movies, kids on an adventure, kids in peril. I mean, one of the genesis of us doing shows, which was Stranger Things, because that was the same thing where I saw the trailer, or I think it was even before a trailer. I was like, oh, this show's coming out this summer. I want to talk about it. Let's fucking do this thing.
Yeah, we used to own StrangerThingsPodcast.com.
Yeah,
and,
we did.
It didn't pan out, didn't work out.
Yeah.
But I blame the Netflix release model for that.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch along, youtube.com/showswhatyouknow. Obviously, you can get the video version of our podcast there if you're listening to the audio feed. But yeah, it does seem promising. Now, this is a competently put together trailer, but I'm also like I'm so weary, I'm just so wary, rather, is the word. I'm but weary and wary, really, because I'm like, okay, this type of story structure, it should be hard to mess up, right? Like, it's
sure.
I don't want the details of exactly what's happening in the plot in this trailer, and they don't really include that. It's more of like, here's like the vibe of where we're at before the inciting incident. Here's after the inciting. We're going on a fucking adventure. Get on board. And I'm like, I do like that, but also kids. Kids are the main characters. That means it's easy to mess up as well. So I don't know, but I do like that it is, as you said, from their perspective, might actually be able to do something new and interesting in the world. That's what we're always looking for with anything Star Wars related or related to any property that has so much media in it, whether it's Marvel Comics or whatever you want, a new fresh take or perspective. And we're both marks for this type of story as well, I think. So definitely optimistic, but I'm also just like, I just watched The Acolyte, and The Acolyte has good parts in it, but The Acolyte also has bad parts in it, and I skipped all of the other terrible Star Wars shows, or most of them. So I'm kind of, but I'm also like, I don't know, Jim. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Well, I mean, John Watts and what was his writing partner's name? Hold on, I just had it up. Oh, Christopher Ford.
Oh, it's Skeleton Jones. They named the show after him, didn't they?
Yeah, Christopher Ford. I mean, they did the Spider-Man Homecoming and No Way Home, Far From Home, whatever. But they also did a movie called Cop Cars, like an indie movie that they made. Somewhat indie. I mean, it had Kevin Bacon in it. It was about kids that like steal a cop car, basically. So I don't know. I feel like it's got some good people behind it. I mean, some people really hate John Watts because they don't like the Marvel version of Spider-Man. Like, that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I'm fairly optimistic. I can't really disagree with anything you're saying, though, too. With something like this, I could give more grace to having kids in it if it's all kids, if that makes sense. Now, like in The Acolyte, for example, when we're flashing back, it was just more like because the young actors in that were not very good. And maybe it's because it's like, in comparison to, like adult actors, like when it's a group of kids, for whatever reason, I can give more of a pass because maybe it just doesn't come off as much because kids can just like feed off of each other a little bit better. But you're right. It is worrisome. And now that I even think about it, between them and like Jake Lloyd and the Phantom Menace, like kids in Star Wars have not panned out that well. So we'll have to see how the acting goes. But I mean, I love the idea of when they show like a glimpse of like what I can assume is a suburban planet, because you know how Star Wars planets are, whatever the thing is, the whole planet. We got a snow planet, we got a city planet, now we got a suburb planet. I mean, I kind of love that idea. It's so basic, but it works. And just the whole thing of just going on an adventure with your friends as a kid, and especially like, I guess we've seen a little bit of it in, say, like The Last Jedi. We see the broom kid, like the infamous broom kid that people either love or hate. But that's the only thing that really comes to mind in at least my limited knowledge of like a child's view of a Jedi, because it's like, oh yeah, you forget that. I mean, outside of like younglings that get slaughtered or something, or younglings that are Jedis, but just a regular kid it's like, oh shit, this is a magic wizard man, and look at all the stuff they could do. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, I always thought that the whole suppress your emotions part of the Jedi that they added in the prequels was such a storytelling wise such a misstep, because it's like, oh great, now every story about Jedi is about, I have these emotions but I'm not allowed to have emotions. Like, what are we all why is this Catholic guilt instead of just some cool space action? Like, why is that such a big part of every story? Of course every child in this world would be like, I would like to be a space wizard also, because that's what they are. And I think to your point of like having all kids is a good thing, and of people saying like, oh, it's a kids show, it is promising to me, because one of the problems with The Acolyte and a lot of Star Wars is that they balance poorly between having like, here's the stuff for kids, here's Jar Jar Binks, here's the charred bodies of, you know, your aunt and uncle or whatever. Like, they're always kind of tipping one way or the other. The Acolyte is particularly like the tone fucking whiplash that hits you when you have like a cutesy little droid companion, and then you also have characters getting murdered ruthlessly. It just doesn't add up. Whereas if that's, you know, if they commit to just doing it, it's through the childlike wondrous eyes of a child, and then also there is real danger in it. That's something you can actually do and put together competently, I think. So, you know, it's a pretty promising crew of people behind it. Let's hope that it's not inundated with, notes from the network making it shit, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like there's a lot of aliens as well, which is always nice to see, because sometimes they'll skimp on stuff like that in Star Wars projects. Like, all of a sudden, everyone's a human. But I don't know. I've been excited. The trailer has me more excited. So, yes, we will see. And then, you know,
I do
outside,
like if it's fully like a suburb planet, like you're saying, like they commit to this being like, oh yeah, it's like 2 systems away from Coruscant, so it's not even like a moon of Coruscant. It's like, yeah, it does take a lot of time to travel there, but like literally we're all gonna move there and work when we're grown up. So like it's we all commute a shitty space commute to a different system, and that's the whole reason this planet exists. We've just inhabited it and are just growing the same goop to eat. Like, that would be a great heightened version of reality, right? Of like the actual Goonies, like, oh, I hate, I guess they didn't hate where they lived there, but you know, like setting up that like baseline of boringness. I would love for them to go over the top there and actually do like, yeah, it's the suburb planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, D23, they also, you know, showed footage from the new Daredevil show. Agatha All Along has like a slightly different trailer. Ironheart, which is like the new Black Girl Iron Man. I think The Rock has a monster truck show. You know, stuff like that. Inside Out's going to have a TV show. All that stuff. It's coming to your TV. Disney Plus, baby. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, and do you know about the Daredevil show? Is it like, how connected is it to the old one? I see it's called Daredevil Born Again. Is it like...
Well, I think initially...
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, initially it was, they were trying to like drop all the connections to the Netflix show. Like, people were pretty upset that the actor that played Foggy, and I forget the other character's name, but they weren't coming back initially. And I think they were actually shot a good chunk, well, like at least a few episodes, and then they went in and rehauled the whole show, and like kind of started from day one. And then due to like fan demand, you know, Punisher's back now, and like it's more tied in with the Netflix show. So we'll see how that goes, because they have rolled out a new like TVMA version. Or I don't know in like Ireland if it's like TV 14 or whatever you guys. I know you guys have weird ratings over there. But they did it with Echo, which is a Daredevil spin-off character that had Kingpin in it, and this is supposed to pick up somewhat on that. They're trying to, but weirdly enough, they're trying to pitch these shows as like more standalone, which they're clearly not. But they are at least upping the violence a bit more and letting it be connected with the Netflix shows, which were previously like fake connected. Like when those launched, they were pitched as being, you know, fairly connected to everything else, but then that slowly like changed as they started making more shows and more episodes.
Yeah, I see, just on a side note, just because I was Googling this show, I see our friend Michael Gandolfini appears in the Daredevil show as Daniel Blade, what is he, the director of communications for Mayor Fisk. So that's fun.
Ooh, maybe he's gonna bring out his make his dad proud.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, or I see speculation here that he might be secretly Kingpin's illegitimate son, Butch. That's the top-rated comment on the Reddit thread. So maybe he'll make his dad proud in more ways than one. We'll have to see.
It would be funny if he's just constantly being cast as mob guys just because of his dad. That's par for the course for Hollywood. So
yeah,
I welcome it.
Yeah. Great. So D23 has happened. Looking forward to it again in 2 years, I guess. Well, what else is going on? Is there any other news, Jim?
No, not really. I mean, there's some
Great.
things, but nothing really to talk about. Let's just move right along to. That's not it. Oh no.
Oh, that's the no news cricket.
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
Now, I know you haven't been watching a lot. I watched a few things, though. I mean, you mentioned reality shows. The Challenge, season 40, baby. Now, weirdly enough, this show has not officially started. This is what's called an episode 0. Episode 0 premiered this past week. And then in a couple days, this upcoming week, as of recording, episode 1 of season 40 is premiering. Now, I don't like that they do this because for real hardcore, real fans of the Challenge know we don't just watch it for the competitions. Like they've tried to morph the Challenge more into like a competition sports show, which is fine. Like it's always had that, but they've tried to almost minimize the drama. And I don't know if that was a reaction to. I've heard that a lot of reality shows kind of have gone through this thing where they thought, you know, whether it be social media, people getting canceled, they tried to kind of like up the decorum a bit, like, and not just like wallow in the gutter of people getting wasted and fighting each other and stuff like that. But that's what we want.
People watch for.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, because even Survivor, I think, I mean, not that Survivor, I mean, you're on an island, so there's not a ton. It's always like game talk and lying to people and stuff. But they tried to like not give a platform as much to the shittier villains. Like, I guess villains are the things that have like gone through a weird morphing of reality, but they're kind of coming back a bit. But anyways, with the Challenge,
is it like people? It got to the stage where everyone was like realized you could get a lot of clout or like a lot of attention, and they realized like the only game here is attention. Really, what can I say and do to get edited into the show more so that I can have sponsorships on my Instagram or whatever? Like that's the game, isn't it? So, but then that will oversaturate it. So then you got to be the classy person or like do something else. So I can only assume these things move in cycles, as with all other storytelling.
No, that's absolutely that. And that's like a general thing reality TV's gone through. But then like with the Challenge, they started like, they still focus a little bit on the house and the drama, but they tried to minimize it a bit, where even like something as basic as a staple of like the contestants first getting to the house, like they would always like see the house for the first time. They're always put up in like this castle type mansion in like Croatia or wherever they are. And it's always like about like running to the house, picking out your room, but then the politics behind that of like, oh, who are you sharing a room with, and who is your alliance, and who is actually in your alliance, but maybe you don't want to share a room with them to appear too close. Maybe you want ears in another room so you know what other people are talking about. They almost like skip that. Like that stuff happens now in what they dub the episode 0. This episode 0 though was a little bit more promotion than anything, because it is, since it's season 40, this is Battle of the Eras. So we got 4 teams. We got a team of like basically all stars from seasons 1 through 10. Then we got like phase 2, which is, 11 through 20, then 21 through 30, and 31 through 40, which is the more recent people. Now, one of the great things about the Challenge, though, is we do have people that have been on this show since late 90s, early 2000s. So they don't come to these shows with the same mindset, as you mentioned, of maybe people that have come within the past 5 years that are focused on their Instagram. They're focused on sponsorship deals they could get. So you got to
They
mix
come with the
that up a
mindset
bit.
of, I am the challenge. I made this house.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was great to watch. You get to just see people mingling. It's a good opportunity to reintroduce some of these characters, and then you'll get to see those show classic clips from seasons past. You know, people yelling and getting into fights and getting wasted, and how that's going to interact as we set up the new season to see who's going to be, you know, basically the king of the eras for season 40, the battle of the eras, if you will. And well, I was going to say, era 1, even though they're a bunch of old people, strong-ass team. And era 2, strongest girls out of any of the teams. So we'll see how this plays out.
I can only imagine the amount of lore in 40 seasons of this show, you know? Like, for the people who are really into it, the challenge heads out there, I mean, what a treat. What a treat for you to see all these people come together. That's like, they've been on the show so far apart from each other that it is like watching different shows cross over, right? Because it would have changed so much in the decades that it's been on.
And this is a thing, I mean, I may record a just challenge discussion with my friend Kristen for my Patreon, not to plug my patreon.com/Jim and them. But this is the thing I'll probably...
Seems like something that should be on showswhatyouknow.com. Let us know in the comments what you think.
But probably a thing I'll get into a little bit more is like, and I think this is true for a lot of longtime challenge fans, is because it very much is a nostalgia show, because there are people in the early eras that are like either a little bit older than me or like right around my age that I did essentially grow up with. Like I watched them on a show like The Real World, and then I watched them on the then I watched them on the Challenge, and then like forgot all about the Challenge for a decade and started watching it again. I'm like, oh my God, like I grew up with this guy. You know, I remember when he used to fight people, and now he's got kids and he's out here fighting. He's not fighting people. He's fighting for his family.
That's fucking Cobra Kai right there.
Yes.
That's like Mike Barnes, if ever I heard about him, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what else?
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
Jacob, what have you been watching?
I've mostly been watching Sunny, a show about a Japanese robot, and we've discussed it here previously. You were more up to date on it last time we chatted about it. I just seen the first episode. I'm now fully up to date. It's still being released though, so neither one of us has the full story. I've seen 5? No, I've seen 6 episodes.
Yeah, you're ahead of me now. I've seen 5 and you've seen 6.
Student becomes the master, as they say. But yeah, I don't know. I guess we can have a more peer-like discussion now, even if I'm ahead of you, than we've had previously. But yeah, I'm just like this. You kind of knew where this show was going, not in terms of any of the detail, but from our initial discussion, when you explained the show to me, I feel like without getting into spoilers, I can't even say that much more. And even if I got into spoilers, I'd be like, just wait until we're done, because there's kind of no point. I don't think that anything really has been resolved, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because these are 30-minute episodes, right? And they have a lot of interesting stuff happening in them. They do a good job of building tension and creating weird scenes. It's kind of that A24 weirdness that I was asking for more of in my Jonathan Strange and Mr. Gnarl show the other week. But it's got all that in spades, and it's well put together, so I do enjoy it. And I'm not even like, I don't feel what's the word, impatient for it to come together and see the ending. I am enjoying the ride, which is exactly what you want out of this type of show. But just as far as the specifics, I can't even, I don't know. How do you feel about it at this stage, having watched, because you've watched half the season?
Yeah, well, no, it's like you're kind of saying what I was saying last week, and I completely agree, because I'm enjoying the episodes. I'm enjoying the characters, and like you said, enjoying the ride. But then, like, when the episode's over and I stop and think about it, I'm like, oh, but they're bringing in this character, and I don't quite know what's going on with that and what that is supposed to mean, or, where this could potentially go. It does feel like, there's just more questions keep coming up as we're getting pretty far into the season. But I guess, like you said, I'm not that impatient either. At least they've earned my trust at this point, where at least I kind of trust it. There's just that little nagging itch in the back of my brain that's like, uh-oh, like what if though? Like, is this going to be annoying? I hope not.
Yeah, and it's like, without going into detail, like at one stage the characters witness a crime and they're like, we got to get the hell out of Tokyo, and then the next episode they're like out of Tokyo, but then the episode after that they're just kind of back in Tokyo. And I'm like, okay, but there are consequences to that, so it's not that it doesn't make sense. There's consequences to deciding to go back home and everything, but it's just like, where are we going, guys? Where are we going with this show?
Yeah, and I think it's just because I think it also just fills my want of having a robot like that. I just want one of those robots. Is that so much to ask?
Yeah, even though it might murder you in your sleep, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, but as long as we get to hang out and snug and, I can go get me stuff and then we could just have discussions, then I'm all about it.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, generative AI does exist and it might kill us all. So, there's that. Cool. Yeah, no, that's Sunny. That's what I've been watching, and I do look forward to having a proper discussion. But because it is weekly, they're half-hour episodes, but it's weekly, so it's not going to be until about a month from now we're going to be able to discuss the finale of Sunny. So we'll check back in then.
Yeah.
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
I mean, the king of the Apple TV Plus shows, the king, like the we're out here beating the drum of Apple TV Plus, and that lore continues because although I guess I'm behind, I started watching Presumed Innocent, which is Jake Gyllenhaal's show. I know I just kind of finished up, I think, because that was also weekly, but I think it did just finish up this season. So I'm sure some people already know where this is going, but I kind of like it. I'm surprised there's not more science fiction going on with it being an Apple TV. But then again, maybe I'm speaking too soon. I'm only an episode in. I know it is based off a Harrison Ford film, which I've never seen. It came out when I was too young where I'd be like, I'm not watching that boring crap. Adults in court and crimes and whatnot. But I mean, the basic gist is Jake Gyllenhaal's like this hotshot lawyer. An associate of his, another lawyer that he works with, they find her dead. They find her body. She's dead in her home, and it kind of turns into this investigation. And I mean, I guess kind of spoilers for the first episode. By the end of the first episode, is he more involved than we think? The one thing I'm a little confused on about this show, and maybe it's just my ignorance, is, are lawyers this involved? I mean, I don't know if it's because it's another lawyer that died, but are lawyers this involved in an investigation of a murder? You know what I mean? Like, are they the ones like following up on? Maybe prosecutors are. I'm not sure. I guess I don't know enough about what I just assume the cops or detectives handle this stuff. Then they communicate with the prosecutor, be like, we got X, Y, and Z, and then they look at what has been sent to them and then decide if it's good to go or not. But this almost makes it seem like...
I'm pretty sure that the detectives beat people up, and then the podcasters do the investigating.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
And then when the podcast is released, that's when the person who's been in prison for 20 years is relitigated, and they go, oh shit, we didn't have any evidence, and then they're let go, except they've already been killed. I think that's how it's supposed to work.
That sounds about right. But anyways, I mean, this is a well put together show. Jake Gyllenhaal is great. I've always loved Jake Gyllenhaal. I like that he's more unhinged in roles now. And I don't know if that's just a thing I'm picking up or if it's actually true, but like ever since Nightcrawler, he always just seems more unhinged in things. And especially in this, there's already like, just like he's got crazy eyes, or maybe I just never noticed his crazy eyes until Nightcrawler, because he used to be dreamy eyes and now he has crazy eyes. But, you know, it's a movie that's now 8 45-minute episodes. So I hope it doesn't feel like Although I think the movie's based on a book. So I was gonna say, I hope it doesn't feel like when I watch, as I continue to watch it, that it feels like a movie that's stretched out too far. But that's yet to be seen. I know the basic buzz from what I've heard on this show has been fairly positive, although I don't know what the reaction has been to the ending. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have also heard that kind of generally positive news, and it is, number one or whatever on the charts for Apple TV in Ireland, which makes sense. So yeah, people seem to be enjoying it. Sonny's hanging out at a comfortable number 6 there, even though that show's still going, and Presumed Innocent has released all of its episodes a little while ago now. So yeah, you'll have to keep me posted. But either way, it's a courtroom drama, right? Or they go out and do a bunch of investigating as well. Does it have like action? Is it fully like people in rooms talking?
It's been mostly people in rooms talking, maybe some flashbacks, which I know you love. I think it's going to be turning more into a procedure, like a courtroom. I mean, there's been some stuff in the courtroom, but I mean, they're setting up and introducing the characters at the moment. Like there's this initially in the first episode, it's Jake Gyllenhaal's boss is the district attorney, but he's up for re-election, and then there's like their two other guys that they work with, but they're kind of their enemies, because it's like, well, you're running against me in the big election, and how is this going to play out? And if my guy loses, does that affect my position? That type of stuff.
Yeah, and I think the last crime drama of this sort, or even involving a courtroom, that I've seen is The Night Of, which we covered on Shows What You Know many years ago at showswhatyouknow.com, which is that's like my metric now, because I remember that so clearly because we discussed almost every episode at showswhatyouknow.com. So I'm like, I assume it's like that, but I'm gonna wait for you to come back and tell me about the rest of it, if it's a must watch or it was pretty good. Because if it's a must watch, I'm gonna watch it, but if it's pretty good, I might be okay.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that you've been watching?
Not really. That's kind of what I've been watching lately.
What TV shows have you been watching? Tell me, I gotta know.
One other quick check-in that I've been watching is, I had mentioned it when the first episode premiered of season 4 of Evil. And I'd only watched that one episode, and I was kind of waiting for for a backlog to build up, because I think they're basically almost done. This Evil season 4 is the last season, and I think they initially were filming it before the strike. They were filming season 4 for 10 episodes, and then the actor strike happened. And
this is the one that's like about a priest and a psychologist, and they're investigating like supernatural occurrences.
Yes, you're correct. Yep. And somewhere in between the time of like the strike and then them getting back to it, the show was kind of canceled basically. But I think they gave them an extension of like 5 episodes to finish it up. So I think there's 15 total. I think they've already aired like 11 or something like that. But I'm finally I'm dipping my toe back. I do really enjoy this show, so I was kind of saving it a bit. And I've watched the second episode. I'm going to be back in so I can get fully caught up for the end of season 4. But I mean, I guess kind of like the obvious comparison is like an X-Files thing, or it's like an X-Files or Black Mirror or something like that, because I love where this show goes. Because even on the second episode, they have like a robot dog. They have like a robot dog storyline, but like the Boston Dynamics. Yeah. Or I think Black Mirror even did a similar episode on one of these. But this was one that maybe had been trained to be racist. Like it was potentially trained. Yeah. Like they initially suspected that it was only going after the main character because he was black. But then as they dug a little bit deeper into it, it was actually going after Catholics. It was going after you for your religion. But the way, and they were like, that makes no sense. You can't just like look at someone and find out that they're Catholic. And they're like, well, no, but it like could scan you if you have like the Bible app on your phone and stuff like that. Like that's how it figures it out. And I was like, This is awesome. I love this. And then because it was the whole thing of like, people were using the app, but they were also downloading extra code for it and maybe unknowingly making their dogs anti-Catholic. There's like a whole boardroom aspect where there's like demons that work in a boardroom, much like Angel or something like that. I love this show. Like I had mentioned in the past, I love the whole camaraderie with the team between the priest and then I don't know that character's name is at the moment. God damn it! But
psychologist type character.
Yeah, but and then of course we got the tech guy. We get the
guy in the chair.
Yeah. So I think it's a great show. It's one of those shows where initially I would have never watched it because I'm like, oh, this is some dumb network, trash CBS show. But then I heard about all the buzz, how it initially got canceled, and then they brought it back to Paramount. And I figured I'd give it a gander. And it's got that good mix of like old school TV, but with like the elevated peak TV added to it. And plus, now that it's on streaming, they could curse. So, and it's got it's more procedural where it is like single episodes, sometimes almost to a detriment because they all also never really fully explain things. Like it's almost every single time. They're just like, was that a demon or was it just technology? I guess we'll never know. We'll have to find out.
Maybe they're the same. Get it? You are really selling me on this show. Every time you talk about it, I'm like, you know what? I should check that out because it's interesting. It used to be, as you said, like the network thing. It used to be like, pshaw, give me a 5-episode miniseries. And now when I go to Evil's Wikipedia page and I see number of episodes 48, I'm like, yeah, nice. They need to be able to tell stories, and if they haven't been canceled by now, maybe they tell those stories well. So yeah, pretty promising. The finale of the series finale is going to be coming out then late next week, so you have some catching up to do, Jim. But maybe I'll be starting at episode 1. I don't know.
Yeah. One, and I might have mentioned this last time we talked about this show. I probably did, but one weird little aspect that I really like about this show, and it's kind of a small thing, but not really, is that the main character, she has like 4 daughters. And usually, with something like this, I think I said this exact thing, but whatever. I'm going to say it again. Usually something like this, you'd have the whole, like, she's a career woman. She doesn't have kids. Like, she's dealing with stuff on her own. And I just thought it's number one, I just thought it was a nice detail. And number two, like the kids could almost be annoying, but they're not. Like they're annoying in the ways that they're purposely, like they're written to be annoying. Like she'll come home from work and all her daughters run up and they're all talking at once. And she's like, shut up. But then they're also
like
a
dog, a robot dog. Fuck off.
Well, and they also get involved in some of the plot lines, like especially like the robot dog. Like they're investigating it and they have it turned off in the garage, but one of the daughters wakes up in the middle of the night and the dog's just scratching at the door and he's like whimpering, like, and she's like, can we keep him? And like the kids all love the dog. And then that plays into like, they do like one of the younger kids is playing like an online, like not Sims, but like an online version of that, but then dealing with potentially like weirdos online. Like the villain might try to interact with her kids through like an online game, stuff like that. I don't know why it seems like such an interesting aspect to the show to me, but I just feel like I don't see it in shows like this a lot. And like, 'cause maybe they'll have a kid or something, but the fact she has like a huge family, it also kind of adds more stakes to it as well. So it's just a detail I really like.
Yeah, usually a character like this on an elite team of 2 will be a young hotshot with no connections. They all got to be House because we all love House, I guess. Something like that, or the family's completely in the background. So yeah, sounds like a good balance.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess that's the show. That's how it's done, right?
Yeah, I guess. If we had that feature at the end, the HISTORTVEE, we could end with a real bang. But now we're just gonna end with an evil little whimper.
Yes. So, what do you think? What are the shows that you're watching? Let us know at showswhatyouknow@gmail.com. Please check out our YouTube if you want to see the visuals. Subscribe and hit that goddamn bell, and rate and review on all the podcast feeds that you might use, whether it be Apple Podcast or, I don't know, Google has something these days, Spotify, of course,
Yeah.
Podbean.
Apple Podcast or one of the other ones. Yeah, one of the bullshit ones. I mean, I don't like Apple Podcasts either, but you can go on there to leave the review. You could surely do us that solid if you've listened this far. And beyond that, of course, there's always showswhatyouknow.com, and go to youtube.com and search på rymmen, then watch clips and be confused if you don't speak Swedish. That's my recommendation for this week. We our show's what you know. We'll always watch TV, and if you think we can't, we'll watch more and you'll see. That's why the people of the web believe in Jim from Las Vegas and Jakob from Sweden.